Madhava ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Go Premanandi, Hari Hari Bo. Welcome everyone. We are going to today be reading something from Bhakti Vinod about criticism, because we've been discussing criticism at length. And then we're going to continue reading from our document on leaving our body. And then we're going to begin, I believe, in the next few days, talking about the spiritual world. Since we're talking about leaving the body, we also want to talk about where we're going after we leave the body. And give me 1 second. Too much light. Better, yes. Okay. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So yesterday we had a class on balance, for those of you who were there, and it turned out to be a good class. We talked about balancing different things in your life. Oops. Recreation and family and what does that say? I can't see it. Finances and sadhana and social media, yeah, the big one, and health and service and work. I had a class about balancing them. And then we said that Dharma is the pole that keeps everything in balance. So you may or may not feel like doing something, but Dharma keeps it in balance. So that was yesterday's class. You can see that. It's up there. And if you did not attend the Jayananda class, that is also up there. And that, I think, it was really inspiring to hear about him. It's just amazing. So I recommend that. If you haven't heard that yet, I recommend it. Hare Krishna. So now we're going to try an experiment. I have my keyboard over here and I don't want to move it. So we're going to see if we can move the microphone and the camera. And that way we can do our kirtan. Let's see if we can do our kirtan. I think this is going to work, and I don't have to move the keyboard. I have to move a few other things. Let's see if this works. I'm going to try this. Hare Krishna. To all of you. This goes here. So every morning before class, we try to go to Vrindavan. We're going to try to go to Vrindavan. And Prabhupada introduced this song. Did you know that? It's just one day he started chanting it, we never heard it. He just introduced it. We didn't know what it was. And he said it was a perfect description of Vrindavan. So we began chanting at the beginning of Bhagavatam class. Radha, Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari, Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari, Gopi Jana Hari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Ishwaranandana Vrajajana Ranjana Shodhanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Shodhanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yasodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Ye Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Shodhanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Shodhanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Saranandana Vrajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Sri Radha Madhava ki jai Gantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai Nitai Go Premananda Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jai Go Premanand. Gauranga! Okay, you want to see what it looks like outside my office? Oh. Can you see? There's all sun in your face. Can you see? Yeah, there you go. Kind of see it, huh? Has to adjust. That's when you open my window, this is what you'll see. A lot of grass growing and a lot of green trees. Kind of nice. And you look out here, one window, you see more trees. We are fortunate. Krishna takes care of his devotees. Let me close the door. If you had any questions that we didn't answer from last class and you remember those questions, then you can please put them up so we can see them. And I'm going to try to answer or take the discussion as we're doing the class. But if it ever happens that we just, like I need to end at 9:30, I have so many things to do. I need to end in an hour and a half, and if I don't, I don't get everything done. So, you just have to give me 1 minuto or less, momentito, to bring up the document. We're going to read Bhaktivinoda. We've been discussing about the poison of death. So, this document is called Criticizing by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and I think our translators have it, and I think, Kamini, you put it up, right? Is that correct? Oh yeah, Burijan Prabhu, answer! Oh, you're going to love this answer. Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. The answer. Okay, I have it written down. This answer is amazing. Now, I have it written down. You know what the problem is? Where to find it? Okay, I should have... Well, this is what he said. He said, I don't remember saying that. What he does remember was the second half of what you said, that he thinks that japa tape was just Prabhupada chanting, someone recording him chanting at a wedding, and it wasn't really meant to be something we chant. It wasn't meant for any reason. But there's two tapes of Prabhupada, 2 recordings of Prabhupada chanting, and one recording is him chanting, and it looks like it's instructional, from what I can tell. And that was so. My philosophy is, whatever helps your chanting, do it. But Prabhupada did say you shouldn't chant during kirtan, because you should focus on one. You shouldn't chant japa during kirtan, or do kirtan during, you do one or the other. Harmonium and, mridanga in one hand and beads in the other. Hare Krishna, no. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So he said, do one or do the other. So, as long as hearing Prabhupada inspires you, why not do it? And if it doesn't, if it distracts you, then that sounds like, oh, I must be a demon because I'm listening to Prabhupada chanting and it's distracting me. You're chanting Hare Krishna, you're not a demon. We all have different minds and moods. And I like to chant alone. I like to chant alone in a dark place and close my eyes. And many devotees, if they did that, they would go to sleep. But that's what I like to do. It works for me. So I didn't clean my lens. Da-da-da-da-da. Lens cleaning. Look at that. All of a sudden I'm effulgent. Okay, so that was his answer, which I probably put under the title of japa. If I can't find it in 30 seconds, then we'll give up. Okay, let's see. It might be here. Da-da-da. No. Another document came up. 32 ways not to chant japa. I should probably give a class on that, right? So I put it somewhere. Anyway, that's basically what he said. He said, I don't remember saying that, but he didn't think that was like, he didn't think Prabhupada made that japa recording as, okay, now everybody, you're going to chant with me. So I made that recording, which doesn't mean we can't chant with it. That was his basic point. One has to search for Krishna on your own, so we have to listen to the mantra of your own voice to be able to connect with Krishna. Yeah, definitely have to listen to your own voice. Otherwise, so that's what I got. Now, Raquel, then you're going to say, wait a minute, I heard him say that. Then you're going to have to find the recording. And if it's on a recording, then I'll say, well, anyway, I don't think it matters whether you said it or not, because that was his only point. He didn't say to chant or to not chant. He just said he didn't think that Prabhupada recorded that specifically for us to chant along with, which doesn't mean we can't. So, but definitely you have to hear your own voice when you chant. There's no question about that. Yeah. Otherwise, here's one of my jokes. Prabhuji, I'm having trouble finishing my rounds today. Could you chant them for me? And I'll, while I'm cooking, I'll just listen to them. And I have 8. Could you chant 8 for me? And I'll just listen. Or I have a better one. Even, we'll do a drama. Krishna consciousness in the year like 3000, or the year. We're in the year 2000. Like the year 7000. There's. Everybody's got robots, right? And your robots do everything, and everybody's like fat, sits on a couch eating potato chips. Of course, by then, they'll probably have potato chips that help you lose weight. But anyway, so, everybody's got a robot. And so the way it works is you chant 16 rounds, it's recorded, and then after that, the robot just chants for you, and then you just have to be around listening, whatever, doing your Facebook or whatever they have in those days, Astro Book, talking to people on other planets, and you listen to the chanting. You listen to yourself chanting. So it's like I chant my rounds. I'm hearing myself. So the nature of the cheating mentality is such that where does it end? Prabhu, Prabhu wrote, what's your robot's name? My robot's name is Krishna Das. What does he do for you? He cooks for me, he cleans, and he chants my rounds for me, even does artis for me. No, but Prabhu, I thought the purpose of bhakti was like to serve Krishna, No, the purpose is to get your rounds done and get the artiks done. And if you can get a robot to get your rounds done and get the artiks done, that's just practical. You got to be practical, got to be real. Life is real, you got to do what you got to do, Prabhu. No, the point of bhakti is not to get things done. The point is to love Krishna. Hare, yeah, we have. If you haven't seen it, Courtesy Japa, there's a video. It's really funny. Courtesy Japa. Look like Courtesy Japa. If you Google Courtesy Japa, you'll see an article by me also. But there's a video, so if you should look for the video, it's hilarious. It has a woman chanting japa, and in her left hand, she's watching TV. She's chanting japa, and she's eating potato chips. So it's just scenarios of like worst case japa scenarios. Chanting and driving, almost getting killed, like that. Chanting and Facebooking, WhatsApping. Okay, Kamania says, thank you for sharing about chanting. I had been struggling with feeling somewhat discouraged after that class where it came up, hearing Prabhupada and the devotees in the background. Helps me to focus. Yeah, whatever helps you focus. The beauty. What's so beautiful? What a beautiful thought is. Every struggle you're going through, Krishna knows. He's in your heart. He knows. And the story of Gop Kumar is beautiful because Krishna said many things to Gop Kumar. And one of the things he said, I know how much you were struggling in the material world. I know what you suffered for me. That's such a beautiful thought. I know how you suffered for me. And the reason that's beautiful, like sometimes my wife looks at my life and some of the things I have to deal with, which she thinks no human being should have to deal with that. Something recently just happened. I forget what it was. And I was telling her how hard it was. And she said, yeah, you're sometimes, things you have to deal with, no human being should have to deal with that. And I was saying, but it's such a privilege, even if you have to undergo suffering, it's such a privilege to do that for Krishna. And then when you go back to Godhead, Krishna will say, yeah, I know how you suffered for me. Otherwise, he's going to say, I know how you escaped all the suffering. Every time there was austerity, I saw you went the other way. I'm going to have to think about letting you stay up here. Let's try you out for a week and see how you do. You don't want that to happen. I thought I made it back to Godhead. You're on probation, you were lazy, couch potato, somehow the back door was open and you snuck in. Okay, you're on probation, we'll give you a week. But, when you suffer for Krishna in name, so-called suffer, which is blissful suffering, Krishna appreciates it. And it's such an honor to be able to suffer for Krishna, I think. Not that I look for suffering, but if it's there and we have to undergo austerity, I think it's a great honor, personally. That's what I think. And chopper robots, yeah. We'll do a video, it's like Mayapur, 3050, and where all the book tables are, I don't know what's there, what they have instead of books. And they have all these japa robots, with different Krishna conscious names. And what does he do? Well, he can do art, he can cook, he can clean, he can do artik, and he can chant your rounds for you. If you've never chanted 64 rounds, you just, chant the mantra once and we'll loop it for 8 hours. You'll be doing 64 rounds. And everyone's like, oh, fantastic. I'll take one for my house and one for when I travel. So, hope it doesn't come to that. But like I told this story, I don't know if you know this story. I was at the airport when Prabhupada was leaving Los Angeles, and I was in the who's who crowd, and so I was with one of Prabhupada's servants, or someone who was a friend of Prabhupada's servant, and Prabhupada carries a white attaché case, and I think he carries valuables, I think he carries money in there. And someone said, would you like to carry that? Those days there's no security, so we just got into the airport and said, would you like to carry it to the gate? And I said, of course. So I was like carrying that. I was on the top of the world carrying that, right? Yeah, it wasn't heavy, but let's just say, for the sake of discussion, let's say it was heavy. And I'm carrying this thing, and this is like, wow, this is Prabhupada. This is what he personally carries, and I'm touching it, and I get to do this service. It was like amazing, right? So could you imagine if they said, would you like to carry it? And I said, no, it's too much trouble. I don't feel like it. you know, my arm's a little weak today, and you know, I didn't get enough sleep last night. And, why don't you find someone else to carry it? You know, the devotee will look at me and think, call the psychiatrist. What's wrong with you? So if there's some austerity we can do for Krishna, of course. Because it's for Krishna, then it's like, wow, I got to do something for Krishna. That's amazing. Isn't it? So Rochelle says, thank you for your answer. Actually, I asked this for others. I like chanting and listening to my own and pray for mercy. Srila Prabhupada's recordings are so inspirational. I listen to it. But not for during japa, yeah. I'm kind of like that also, Rochelle. Like I was saying a few days ago, it's like if you listen, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram. If you listen to it, then when you're chanting, sometimes it's like you hear that, even though it's not playing. And you all of a sudden you're chanting, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram. All of a sudden you're chanting like that. So at least for me it worked that way. And that's also where we learn. You found that's the link for the courtesy japa. Okay, everyone can note that link. Don't go there now. Courtesy japa, how not to chant Hare Krishna, ISKCON Desire Tree. Yeah, that's it. You can make a note. Courtesy. Then you can, if you just Google courtesy japa, how not to chant. How not to chant. Yeah. If this were on Skype, we could just watch it, and it's like 20 minutes. We could just watch it, and then I could go chant some japa while you're watching it. And anyway, you watch it on your own, okay? Courtesy japa, yeah, the devotees just read my article and they made it. So that was like, and they're professional video company. Krishna Karshani says, you said if our japa is not good, we should be around those whose japa is pure. During our japa walks, I was always trying to be next to you. Listening to your chanting, to be honest. I listen to your chanting more than my own chanting. If we chant with Guru, should we listen to our chanting or more chanting of our... We should listen to our chanting and feel... You don't have to do anything, actually. At least this is my experience. If you just are close to someone who's pure, your chanting will just improve. You don't have to listen to theirs because you're supposed to listen to yours. That's the process. Obviously, you want to listen to someone who's pure for a minute or two, but you're supposed to listen to yours. It's like it's like eating. While I was eating, I was putting the food in your mouth. Well, then you're not going to go too far that way. Sanatani says, I love having Prabhupada chanting japa. It draws my mind back to the mantra. Also, you can look at the Maha Mantra while you chant. That's another way of focusing. In some temples, the Maha Mantra is on their altar. That's the only deity on their altar. So, my personal experience is what inspires you. If it's within the principles of bhakti and not against anything Prabhupada said, then you choose what inspires you. And you see from this discussion, some people get inspired by hearing Prabhupada chanting while they chant, some when they don't chant, some just want to chant in silence, some don't want to chant at all. They put on Prabhupada chanting so they don't have to hear themselves chanting. If that's why you put it on, because you don't like to chant and you don't want to hear yourself chant, then yeah, that would not be good. Kamaniya says, well, before that, let's see, Alvia, I can't pronounce your name. You're going to have to tell me how to pronounce it. Anna. when we do a Skype class, then or anywhere, you could send me a WhatsApp and pronounce your name, because I don't like mispronouncing names. But it looks like Lithuanian or Norwegian, maybe? Is it? So, should we read? We're reading about the 6 faults that destroy bhakti. Okay, I think we're ready to read. Yes? Well, not just hearing by the ears, but also feeling with the heart, definitely. From Marco, from Gurunishta, many years back, once I had asked you what kept you going, and you said that you couldn't accept that Maya would defeat you. I'm so arrogant, right? As you, Alvidya, as you, Alvidya? Lithuanian. God, I know everything. Okay. I love the Lithuanians. They're amazing. They're unique people. And the Lithuanians love me. It's a perfect relationship. Okay, so we're reading from Bhakti-aloka by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So now we have to do we have the Bhakti Burfi video series. My wife said it should be you just make cartoons, one little each stupid thing he does. That's easier than a video. And now we have to do the 3020. What ISKCON's going to be like? Video. That would be hilarious. Hare Krishna. Okay, so this is, we're reading from something that Vijayalakshmi found and sent to me. This is from a book called Bhakti-aloka, The Planet of Bhakti, by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, where he writes about the 6 faults that destroy bhakti. And we're just focusing on this because we've been talking about criticism. So we're reading. One is Prajalpa, where he says, quote, that whatever Prajalpa that is not favorable for devotional service should be given up by Vaishnavas who are cultivating bhakti. Prajalpa means, it basically just means talk that's unnecessary. If you have some service, or you have a business, or you're taking care of this or that, then you have to discuss what's relating to that business. But prajalpa means you're just talking kind of uselessly about trivial things which have no real redeeming value for you or anybody around you, which is basically what everyone's doing. In order to pass one's life without sin, one should not speak anything more than whatever little is necessary. One need discuss only whatever is auspicious for oneself and others. If one wants to discuss topics of others, it will simply be useless speech. Therefore, in the Srimad Bhagavatam 11:28-2, Lord Krishna instructed Uddhava as follows. Whoever indulges in praising or criticizing the qualities and behavior of others will quickly become deviated from his own best interest by his entanglement in illusionary dualities. Okay, we'll get back to that in a minute, because you're all thinking, wait a minute, we're supposed to praise devotees. He goes on to say, quote, speech in the form of blaspheming sadhus is the source of great inauspiciousness. Devotees are sadhus. By blaspheming them, all one's virtues are destroyed. The example is Prajapati Daksha, who met with severe inauspiciousness. All his benedictions will be destroyed. Srimad Bhagavatam 10:446. So, where is that? Either Bhagavatam or Chaitanya Charitamrita, it said we shouldn't criticize and we also shouldn't praise. We should be beyond duality. Of course, for us as devotees, we should praise devotees, but definitely don't praise or criticize ordinary people. It's like, if you're going to praise devotees. But the idea is praising or criticizing is that outside of devotional service, nothing's really praiseworthy. And it's not worth giving your attention to criticizing it. It's just like don't praise it or don't criticize it. It means don't talk about it, don't think about it, don't deal with it. That's with material things. Just, it's material. It's not, if it's not in relation to Krishna, you can't use it. What's the point of praising it and what's the point of criticizing? The praising it is just the opposite of criticizing. It just absorbs your mind. Oh, that's such a beautiful car. Oh, that's such an ugly car. It's like the same thing. Why are we talking about cars? Why aren't we talking about Lord Jagannath's Rath Yatra cart? His chariot. And that's what we're supposed to be talking about. So that's his point. Now, he says, he doesn't say this directly, but here's the thought. You say, what language do they speak in the spiritual world? And you'll say, they speak Devanagari, the language of the gods. Sanskrit. Devanagari is the script. The language of the gods. They speak Sanskrit. Well, yes, and that's one answer. And you could ask, what language do they speak in the material world? There's so many languages, thousands of languages, languages we'd never heard. Aside from the main languages that we know of, there's so many other dialects and this and that. But if you wanted to sum it up, you could say, what language do they speak in the spiritual world? They speak praise of the devotees and praise of Krishna. And what language do they speak in the material world? They speak criticism. So, if you speak the language of the spiritual world, where do you go? And if you speak the language of the material world, where do you stay? Very simple statement, but when you think about it, it's quite deep. If my tongue is engaged in praising or criticizing things of this world, well, the language of this world is Prajalpa, and so this is where I'll go. So it's really interesting if you think about it. The tongue is like a steering wheel, because what you say with your tongue immediately affects your consciousness. Even if you say something material, that it can make you very inspired or very disgusted, just what you say, isn't it? So the tongue is a bit like a rudder on a boat or a steering wheel on a car. It can take you to places. And the tongue that is criticizing devotees, that tongue will keep you in this world. Now, another reflection, another meditation, I was reflecting on this yesterday because I was teaching, we were teaching a course for non-devotees on relationships, and we were talking about how people do things that disturb us, and how we have to note that it's not ultimately them that's disturbing us. They're just a catalyst for bringing out something within us. So I was thinking about the quality of criticism. We were also thinking of other things, envy and anger and so forth, that reside within us. And so after the class, I was thinking how, and we had mentioned this, in the class we had on Tuesday, that if we're criticizing, it makes common sense to think, okay, there's something going wrong within me that I'm so upset with this devotee, or there's something going on within me that I have to criticize this person. That's the natural way we should think. We should think, what's wrong with me? Why am I so upset? Or why am I so, what's the word when you get enamored by something? Not that I'm enamored by this devotee, but I'm upset. Why am I so obsessed with this devotee and always talking about how bad they are? Now, we had discussed something which I think we could never discuss enough. And so to remind you, we were discussing the point, and this is coming from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, that the person actually may be bad, or the person may be, quote unquote, worthy of criticizing. But the problem is when we don't need to criticize. then we have to ask ourselves, okay, he did something wrong, but is there any redeeming value to discussing it? Because I'm not involved in rectifying the situation. It's not affecting me or anyone else. It's just I don't like it, or I don't think it's right. Okay, it may not be right. Granted that. But we just have to ask ourselves, why am I absorbed in it? Is it for some benevolent reason? Or is it for another reason? Is it an anartha on my part that I'm absorbed in a way that I'm offensive? Or in a way that it's taking my mind away from Krishna? So in our forgiveness workshop, we do this very interesting exercise. And we ask the devotees a question: what is holding on to resentment costing you? And one devotee said, it's costing me my japa. And so I asked him to explain. He said, because sometimes when I hold on to resentment strongly, then during japa I think about that person. And maybe you've had that experience. Probably we've all had the experience of something disturbing us and thinking about it during japa. It could be a person, or it could be not a person. It could be anything. It could be a stomach ache. It could be an emotional ache. It could be a bad experience. It could be a stupid thing you did, or it could be a person who hurt you. And then he said something which I found to be extremely interesting, and you may have this experience. And just thinking about this, it's so interesting from a philosophical perspective. So he said that during the whole time of japa, because I was holding on to this very high frequency of resentment, I was thinking of the person. And when I finished my japa, I was more angry at them than when I started. So just think about that. It's such an interesting statement. I shouldn't be angry at a person. I shouldn't be thinking of them in a negative way. They're a devotee. I think it was this devotee's former wife. I think that's who he was talking about. That's my guess. And he was so upset. Let's just say, for the sake of discussion, it was her. And he was so upset with her that he couldn't get her out of his mind during japa, but he was thinking of her in a very aggressive and angry and vengeful way. And at the end of 16 rounds, his anger, it seems, was being nourished by the Hare Krishna mantra. Of course, there's nowhere in Shastra that says chanting Hare Krishna nourishes your anger, but that's what happened to him. That's interesting. And that just basically destroyed his japa. Obviously, that wasn't japa, because japa actual chanting would free you from that. But instead of freeing it, he was like using Krishna to inflate his ego. I'm right, I'm right, I'm right. And so he was saying that, when I finish my chanting, I'm more convinced than ever, than even before I started, that I'm right and she's wrong. So that chanting was just pumping up his false ego. Isn't that interesting? So, this kind of thinking, whether it's resentment or envy or criticism or blasphemy, it's dangerous, because once you go down that road, it can just expand in so many directions. And it can destroy you. It can destroy your japa. It can destroy relationships. It can destroy you physically. It can do so many bad things for you psychologically. So I think that, to me, that's the question that we need to be asking ourselves. Not like, what's wrong with this devotee? He's always doing this and he's always doing that. Rather, we should say, what's wrong with me that I'm always meditating on what's wrong with him? And as I said, granted, there may be something wrong with him. There's something wrong with so many of us. But what's wrong with me that I need to be meditating on him? That's the question. That's where we need to look. And then we need to understand that if we're advancing in devotional service, we will come to this point where we stop criticizing. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, I don't know if you remember reading this, but Prabhupada was describing the symptom of a Mahabhagavat, or Uttama Adhikar. He said, not that he doesn't criticize, he said he doesn't even have the propensity to criticize. So it starts with stopping and it ends with pure devotion, the pure devotion of the Uttama Adhikari, where not only do you not criticize, you have no desire to criticize, because you realize you're the worst of the bunch. Everyone's better than you. So why would you criticize people who are better than you? So that's where bhakti is going. That's the direction it's going. And it's so nice to understand what is pure humility, what is pure bhakti, because then you understand that's where we're trying to go. And if you don't understand that's where you're trying to go, then it's easier to criticize, because you don't realize that if I were more Krishna conscious, I wouldn't even have the propensity to criticize. So knowing that's very important information, don't you think? Knowing that's what pure devotional is, pure devotional service is, that's what a pure devotee is. He doesn't have the propensity to criticize. It's important knowledge. So these two things, that this is the language of the material world, and it opens up Pandora's box of problems. Criticism is the language of the material world. Pure devotee does not have a propensity. And the third thing, to ask myself, why, when I see the fault of another, why do I need to focus on it? And the fourth thing, I mentioned, was how it can be so destructive, and how it can, fuel ego. And then one other thing, it's additional. I had mentioned this before, many of you have heard this, but this is such a powerful statement. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, I believe it was a lecture, he said, why do I criticize other devotees? And he said, the reason I criticize, and of course he's teaching by example, the reason I criticize is because I lack even 1 ounce of humility. And the reason I like this is because if I ask a devotee, why are you criticizing, they usually have a reason. I'm criticizing because so-and-so said this, so-and-so did that, so-and-so treated me this way, or treated another devotee in a bad way. That's why I'm criticizing. And if you ask Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, why did you criticize that devotee, although I don't believe he did, but let's say hypothetically that happened. Gurudev, why did you criticize that devotee? Because I lack even 1 ounce of humility. That's why he did it. So that's really an important analysis for us. Why? So if you ever ask yourself, why did I just criticize that devotee? Why do I need to do this? You have the answer now, because I lack even 1 ounce of, even a drop of humility. That's why I did it. And if we can be honest and answer the question that way, then we can start making progress, and we can start overcoming this. You agree? I think it makes total sense, doesn't it? So that's why I've been misunderstood a lot when I recommend not criticizing, because whenever I do, I always get, Prabhu, there's so many problems in ISKCON, and how can you overlook it? And people are doing so many things, and they're hurting others, and it's not criticizing if you speak out. And it's totally true what they're saying. I totally agree. But if the criticism goes beyond, if the criticism has no practical, there's nothing practical you can do with it, or it goes beyond what you can do practically, then we have to say, well, I'm doing it because I lack humility. You're trying to rectify a situation, I wouldn't say it's because we lack humility, it's because you're concerned. Okay, there's no question. But when we're doing it for no reason, Prabhu, do you know so-and-so? Oh, yeah, him, and then you just go off. Who does he think he is? You hear the class he gave? Oh my God. Can you believe that he had the audacity to say that in class? That is like, and then you're just like, why did you do that? Why do you need to do that? That's the question we have to ask ourselves. Why do I do that? And the answer will always be, because I lack humility. Another t-shirt, dun, 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 dun. Why do I criticize? Because I lack even a drop of humility. There it is. And people see the t-shirt and go, wait a minute, that's not right. I criticize because there are problems and I want to do something. Yeah, that's always the answer. But when I'm giving these talks, I'm not talking about situations like that. I'm talking about ordinary, just like what we ordinarily do, like, 68 times a day, when we go, Oh, yeah, that devotee. Oh, my God. That kind of thing. Oh, did you read that article? I can't believe he said that. That kind of stuff, which is just kind of off the top of your head. Off the top of your head, polluting the bottom of your heart, basically. You know, what comes out of the tongue. It's there, and what's there is probably in here. And if it wasn't in here, it wouldn't be in here, and if it wasn't in here, it wouldn't be in here. So boom, boom, boom. So, you know, that's how we have to see it. Okay, so that's what I wanted to say about that. And you may have some comments. When I asked Bharadari Prabhu the same question, he said, "Is God brothers and sisters? How do you keep going? Oh, God brothers and sisters." Lakshmi Nishringa. Where's Lakshmi Nishringa? Oh, Lakshmi Nishringa ki jai. I was just thinking about you the other day. Lakshmi Nishringa. Was it a good day or a bad day? No, it was a good day. No, we drove by your old house. That's right. They put up a beautiful trail, like a, what do you call it, preserve? Yeah, very close to where you used to live. So I went there with my daughter. And we were supposed to chant japa, but the whole time we ended up talking about Raganuga Bhakti. Hare Krishna. My daughter's listening to all these like really elevated talks now. She listens to like, I don't know, 5 hours of classes every day. So, yeah. Hare Krishna. So, yeah, so that's my personal realization. Like, if I'm criticizing and it's not necessary, ask why. You know, so here's the problem. I think this is I don't know, maybe Lakshmi Nishringa, you could agree or disagree with me. Prabhupada was trying to teach us things through his godbrothers. Through some of his godbrothers, he was trying to teach us mistakes that we shouldn't make. And he would point out mistakes that they made. And it really wasn't meant to be a criticism of them, but he did it, and he said this in the end of his life. He did it for us, to show us. Well, you know, if someone makes a mistake, you might say, well, don't do what so-and-so did. And it's not really that you're criticizing that person as much as you're just saying, this person did this, and it didn't end up well. It created a problem. So don't do what they did. But it kind of stimulated in the heart or the minds of some kind of like this license that it's okay to criticize senior people if they don't act properly because Prabhupada did it. And, you know, I reflect on that and I think, you know, Prabhupada did it to help us and to preserve the movement. But at the same time, it's a double-edged sword because it wasn't taken well by everyone and it was used kind of like, well, our guru did it, so I can do it. But one time some devotee was doing that and Prabhupada stopped him. He said, these are my godbrothers. And Prabhupada always said, you have to honor the Guru's godbrothers like him. And he stopped the devotee. He said, kind of like, how dare you say that? So he was thinking because Prabhupada said it, it was okay to say. And I've seen this also where we've had problems in ISKCON and some senior people in our movement who left, or some senior people who were never part of our movement, part of other Gaudiya movements, were criticized. And then the young devotees, blah, 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 they're just lashing out these horrible criticisms because they heard it from another respected devotee. I'm not saying the devotee is not respected, but they heard it and they're just repeating it. And I could actually see when they were repeating it that they were very disturbed, not repeating it, but they were disturbed by that devotee, and they never even met that devotee. They don't know who he is and what he does, but because of what they heard, That a very, very negative attitude. And in one case, the devotee that was being criticized was very exalted devotee. And even if that devotee did something questionable, I personally would never criticize that devotee. I just feel like if I criticized him, that would be the last day I chant my rounds or something. So I have that, sense, that cautionary sense that, be careful. And this young devotee just, rah, 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 rah. And I was so shocked. And I was seeing, I said, there was a problem in our movement, and the process of correcting it was to point out the faults of this, so-called faults of this senior devotee. Be they real or imagined is not the question. But the point is that circulated, and it's trickled down to very young devotees who became very critical. And when I heard that, I said, this is the problem. It's a double-edged sword. When you're trying to correct a mistake that a senior has done, it trickles down to young devotees. Like, oh yeah, that Maharaj, yeah, I heard this and that. Hey, have you ever seen that, any of you? Or been involved with that yourself? Because it's dangerous. It's dangerous to go. It's more kata and japa here. We can't see it. The camera is focused on your right side. No. It can't be focused on my right side. How is it possible? That's my other body you're looking, my expansion. Krishna Kanta says, how about Prajalpa, what to do when you get annoyed to be around devotees because they get into Prajalpa all the time. And it's not like you can avoid being around them. They are people you serve together. Yeah, here's the mantra. When someone's criticizing another, works every time. Try it out and see if you like it. If someone's criticizing another devotee and it's awkward for you to say, shut up, Prabhu. So you can't say, shut up, Prabhu, because they're your friends or they're seniors. Not that you would say, shut up, Prabhu, but we're joking. So you can't say, Prabhu, ji, cut it off, zip your lips. I have some tape here. If you don't stop talking, they're going over your lips. You can't do that. What do? You say, excuse me, I have to go to the bathroom. My stomach hurts. And then you run away. Works every time. No one will know what you're doing. But every time they start speaking Prajalpa, you go, oh, I have a stomachache, I have to go to the bathroom. After a while, they're going to figure out, he doesn't like it when I speak Prajalpa. Or every time I criticize a devotee, he goes, oh, sorry, Prabhu, call of nature. And he runs away. And after a few times, why is it every time I criticize a devotee, you have to go to the toilet? I don't know. I don't know. I guess I don't like criticism. It makes me go to the toilet. Okay, half serious and half joking. But sometimes or the other thing is, excuse me, Prabhu, I just forgot. I have to call somebody now. These are polite ways of, should we write a book? 108 ways to get yourself out of a mess when another devotee is speaking Prajalpa. One, I have to go to that. Number 2, excuse me, Prabhu, I forgot. I have an appointment now. Oh my God, I'm late. I'm sorry. It's nice seeing you. You get an app that rings your phone. And you take your phone and you go, hit the app. You go, I'm sorry, I got to take this. Oh, hold on a second. Oh, Prabhu, I'm sorry, it's an important call. Yeah. It's true. It's true. With some people, you can't stop them. So you have to develop transcendental trickery. Prabhu, I'd love to talk, but I haven't. I'm behind 108 rounds. And when I finish my 108, we'll get into it, okay? And every day they'll say, have you finished your 108? I said, almost. Just it's coming close. It's coming close. I'm still working on it. And you'll be eternally trying to finish your 108, so you'll never have to talk to them. I have this one devotee. Sometimes I don't like to go to the temple, chant my rounds at the temple, because people talk to me. One devotee, if he gets opportunity, at least half hour he'll talk to me during japa, 45 minutes. So I want to get a bead bag. It says, "When my hand's in my bag, talking to you is a drag." So as soon as someone comes up and wants, there's a few devotees that like to talk during japa. As soon as they come up to me, I go, I don't have the bag, but if someone wants to make the bead bag, we're making t-shirts, might as well make bead bags. When my hand's in my bag, talking to you is a drag. And I have this rasa with this one devotee, because he loves to talk, and every time he comes to talk, I'm like, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. So he got the message. But he's a God brother, I could do that. He's like, oh, okay, I won't bother you. He's coming to talk to me, and he wants to say something, I just like, about face, and he's like, okay, I get the message. So sometimes these things are required. Connection with getting upset. Song of the Avanti Brahman, where he said the suffering coming from these three sources, these sources is unavoidable. Therefore, just be paramatmanishta, situated. Yeah, Avanti Brahman story is amazing. There's a place called Avanti. Is that where Krishna went to school? Is that where Sandipani Muni had his school? Avanti. So there was a Brahmin from Avanti who was known as the Avanti Brahmin. Wow, that's amazing. A Brahmin from Avanti is known as a Avanti Brahmin. I never would have thought of that. Yeah. So you've heard about the Avanti Brahmin, but you didn't know Avanti is a city. So you wouldn't. Avanti, you think, what does Avanti mean? Must be something mystical. Everybody hated him because he was a miser. Even his family hated him. Get out of the house, you bum, useless. They hated him so much. He was such a miser. People would urinate on him. Just like they hated him. They couldn't stand him. So people were doing these horrible things to him. Urinating on him and spitting on him, whatever. And he was like, I deserve it all. It's Krishna, it's like nobody's to blame. It's like Krishna's mercy. Now, you're listening to this and going, there's no way that I would ever be able to react that way. Okay, I probably could agree with you. You're probably right. When someone passes urine on you, probably you're not going to go, Krishna's mercy, Haribo, bring it on, spit on me also. I deserve it all. But there's a lesson, because he saw everything as, deserved and karmic, and, So that's the lesson we're supposed to learn. So yes. And if Krishna brings you into your life someone you just love to criticize, just realize that he sent them there to teach you that you're a jerk, basically. How many people has Krishna sent you in your life to teach you the big lesson? I am such a jerk. Because when Krishna sends people like this, I get angry. I criticize. I waste time with anger and criticism, this and that. Think of all the people Krishna, make a list after class of all the people Krishna sent you that you thought were jerks, but actually Krishna sent them for you to realize you were a jerk. And the next question is, have you realized that yet? When they cause you to react in so many horrible ways, and you think, yeah, you're a jerk, you made me act this way. And Krishna's saying, no, you got it backwards. He's not the jerk, you are, because you reacted to him. And you're like, yeah, well, how many lifetimes is it going to take to get that lesson, Hare Krishna. So that's how we have to see it. The song of the Avanti Brahman, that story, the Avanti Brahman story is beautiful, it's amazing. He was just, and you know what the Avanti Brahman said? He said, even my karma is not the cause of my suffering. Other people are not the cause of my suffering. This and that is not the cause of my suffering. He said, the cause of my suffering is my mind. That's the only cause of suffering, is the mind. No, but, you're not the cause of my suffering. Trump is not the cause of my suffering. The lockdown is not the cause of my suffering. My mother-in-law is not the cause of my suffering. Heavy metal music When I drive by a loud car, heavy metal music, yeah, that is the cause of my suffering. No question about that. But other things, he's saying, it's not the cause of your suffering. Your mind is the cause of your suffering. And then Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, he said something similar, but in a different way. He said, nobody can harm you unless you allow them. And what did he mean? Like, he meant, this person who's doing horrible things that is disturbing you, is driving you completely crazy, said they cannot disturb you unless you allow them to disturb you, unless you allow yourself to get affected by that. I can't believe he did that. How could he do that? It's so bad. It's so wrong. We need justice. We need to take this GBC. We have to do something about, And you go to bed thinking about it. You wake up, 3 a.m. You couldn't sleep. You're on the internet, talking about this devotee. Nobody can harm you. That Prabhu or Mataji cannot harm you unless you allow them. Isn't that beautiful? So Bhavanti Brahman is saying, it's not his fault, it's not her fault, it's not this situation, it's nothing, it's this. This is I'm allowing myself to get disturbed by this, but I don't have to. That was his big realization. He said, it's not even my karma, it's the mind. The mind is the cause of suffering. Hare Krishna. True or true? Yes or yes? Good or great? Okay. We should do like the swan, which manages to extract milk and a mixture of water and milk. Yeah, I'll take that. Don't be like the fly who goes for thee. Don't be like the fly who goes for the stool. Be like the honeybee and get the honey. Don't be like a fly. Don't be like a crow. Don't be like a what? What else is there? What other example is there? The sieve who sees the hole in the needle. Don't be like a fly. Don't be like a crow. Don't be like a sieve. Be like a swan who drinks from the nectar grove. Yeah, that was Prabhupada's, I think Chanaka was also like it. You study animals and then you understand consciousness by studying animals. You study the swan, he just gets the milk from the lotus, and you study the fly who just goes after stool, or the crow who goes after trash. So these examples Prabhupada used. The crow going after trash, that example was Prajalpa talking nonsense, and criticism was the example of the fly. And the honeybee goes after the honey. And that's going after the good qualities, praising the good qualities. You can call me Rachel, like the English pronounce. Rachel. 10-2. You can call me Rachel. Sounds like a TV show. English pronunciation. I tend to criticize meat eaters and non-devotees, which looks so sinful to me. How can I stop doing that? How can I understand people who think slaughtering animals is okay? Because there's a story. Rachel, what country are you from? Rachel, looks like Israel, right? Correct? I can't see anyone's picture. I could barely see your picture. And a lot of devotees, I don't know their last names, and now I get to see it. So, Israel, correct? Am I correct? Do I know everything? So, this is a great question, and I can give several answers. First, let's hear what Prabhupada said. This similar situation came up because when you become a devotee, especially when you first become a devotee, it's like you really feel good being away from this rajasic, tamasic environment. But then when you go into it, it's like, ooh, I don't like these people. They're so gross. We use that word in America, gross. Gross means unrefined. We could say not sattvic. So this was going on with Prabhupada, and Prabhupada said the devotees were young devotees. He said, A year ago, you were just like them. So Prabhupada was saying, you became a devotee, but, you could go back to being like them. And a year ago, you were just like them. So what's the big thing? Like, who are you? You're not so great. A year ago, 6 months ago, 3 months ago, 2 weeks ago, you were doing the same thing they're doing. So what's wrong with you? Why are you so down on them? And also you have to be careful, because we had discussed a few days ago, when you criticize, often the qualities, the things you're criticizing come back to infect you. So, why does somebody meet? Probably the number one reason is because they're ignorant. And the number two reason is they want to remain ignorant. And the number three reason, of course, it may not be in order of what comes first, is they like the taste. And the number four reason, they're extremely insensitive to the killing of animals. But you have to understand, they've been raised to believe animals are food. They don't see animals as sentient beings. They see them as food with legs, basically. Moving food that you have to kill to eat. And some of them may be, quote unquote, nice people. So we have to see there's ignorance, and therefore, when you see that ignorance, that should inspire you to preach. Not disgust you, not make you angry. Those dirty karmis. Ugh. But, there's so many non-devotees that don't know about Krishna. Let's give them Krishna consciousness. They need it. If they know about Krishna, then they can act properly. So it should be an inspiration rather than disgust us. And it should bring out compassion. These fortunate people, these people are unfortunate. They haven't heard. Let me make them fortunate. Srila Prabhupada, why does someone take to Krishna consciousness and someone else don't take? He said, because they're fortunate. No, Prabhupada said, the devotee said, Prabhupada, how was our good fortune created that we became devotees? And Prabhupada said, I created your good fortune. So your job, Rachel, is to create good fortune for all the people that don't have it, that you see who are ignorantly drinking their beers and eating their meat and smoking their cigarettes and doing everything. You see them as devotees that are just in ignorance, and if you can remove the ignorance, you give them a chance. So you should be inspired. That should be inspired. You should be inspired by the ignorance. I told that story last week. I'll tell it again because it's so amazing. I've actually told it. This will be the third or fourth time. But I don't know if you heard this story, Rachel, and it'll help you a lot. So this boy comes to a guru. This is a real life story that happened maybe 10, 20 years ago. He comes to a guru, but not in ISKCON, but outside. And the guru says, how can I help you? And he says, well, I'm looking for a guru. And the guru says, so what are you doing? He said, 16 rounds, 4 principles, Mangal Artik, book distribution, reading 2 hours, etc. And the guru says, you don't need a guru. You're doing fine. It's like if that were a TV show, bing, bing. Like, what does that mean? And then the next boy comes in. He said, I need to talk to you. So what are you doing? Some days 4 rounds, some days no rounds, some days 16, some weeks no rounds, some days 4 principles, some days 3, some days 2. Up and down like a yo-yo. I'm so envious. I'm so Tamasic. I'm so this. And the guru says, okay, I'll accept you. And the devotees asked him, said, well, what's going on here? He said, well, why did the first one, he's like doing fine. The guru's like a physician. But this other person is sick, so he needs a guru. I accepted him. So that's the idea, If everyone's a pure devotee, they don't need you, Rachel. But all the people who aren't, they need you, because they need you to help them. So it should arouse your compassion. Ignorance in others should arouse your compassion. It should be an inspiration for you. People are suffering. That's such a big inspiration for us. Right? But if you're putting them down to, they're so bad, that's a kind of fanaticism. Or it's a kind of immaturity. Yeah, that's what I would say. No offense to you, but we've all been through it, believe me. Dirty, meat-eating karmis, yuck. disgusting. These people are disgusting. I can't stand them. Look what they're doing. That's kind of like you're just trying to protect yourself, and it is disgusting that people are eating meat. But we want to get to this point where we hate the sin, not the sinner, and we can love them and try to give them Krishna consciousness. I mean, we distribute books to people who are, eating meat while we're talking to them. So we have a new song. Like the bee seeking nectar, not like the fly seeking stool. It's not. Stool is probably not a good word for a song, right? And what are you going to name the song? The Stool Song. Hello, Shane, all the way from Australia. Support people, yeah. Like the worse people are, the more the guru's like, okay, you're qualified. Why am I qualified? Because you have so many problems. You're qualified. But don't go to the guru and dump all your problems on him. That's not, just don't use that story to I have 108 problems to dump on my guru. He's going to love it. He's going to see how qualified I am to be his disciple. Not exactly like that. Something like a doctor, Doctors see patients who are sick. So, but your guru is giving you medicine all the time. Krishna Karshani says, is it not criticizing coming from a lack of understanding others also, their situation, their character? Yeah. Criticism, it's a very self-reflective thing because, sometimes I said, we can ask ourselves the question when we're criticizing, what need am I trying to fulfill by criticizing? Because there's a need. It's a really interesting question. It may be difficult for some of us to answer. I'm criticizing what's going on. There could be many things going on. And I have an article where I list, maybe it's on Dandavats or somewhere on my website, reasons that I've understood why people criticize. There are many, many reasons. So a lot of criticism comes from personal dissatisfaction. I'm dissatisfied with myself. I'm dissatisfied with my life. I'm dissatisfied with everybody in my life. I'm just dissatisfied. I hate everyone and everything. You know that story? This is one of the funniest stories I ever heard in my life. I'll tell you next year. You'll love it. Maybe for my birthday next year, I'll tell you the story. It's so funny. So amazing. Oh, you want me to tell it now, not next year? Okay, I'll tell it now. So, during Prabhupada's time, often the senior people, especially if they had big positions, they would go to Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada, can I take sannyas? 23, Okay, Prabhupada, can I take sannyas? I'm ready. I'm ready to go out and save the world. But sometimes Prabhupada let them do it because they were senior leaders and preachers, and they were really doing a lot of service. And so this is what he said to Prabhupada. What about your wife? Yes, she's okay, Prabhupada, no problem. She's fine with it. Prabhupada said, if she's fine, okay. So all of a sudden the news gets out. It's amazing. There was no internet. I think in those days, news would fly faster than it does now, even without the internet, especially like this. So-and-so, Prabhu is taking sannyas. It flew out, and where do you think it flew to? His wife, who knew nothing about this, it's okay to take sannyas line that he told Prabhupada. She immediately got on a train or a plane or somewhere. She was he was in Vrindavan, I think she was in Calcutta, Kolkata. And so she had a very intimate relation with Prabhupada. It was so intimate, she used to take Prabhupada's hand and do his give him his, what do you call it? Palmistry, when you read, she would read Prabhupada's hand. She'd sit there and be reading Prabhupada's hand, holding his hand. This means you're going to live a long time, and this means this. And Prabhupada's oh. That's the kind of relationship she had with Prabhupada. Not every female disciple had that relationship. She had it, and Prabhupada let her have it. You imagine? So, one day you come to see your wife's with Prabhupada, and you walk into the room, and they're sitting next to one another, and say, and Prabhupada, this means you're going to this, and that means this. Hare Krishna. You'd have a double take on that. Is this really happening? So she gets in, gets into Vrindavan, storms in Prabhupada's room. What is this? My husband is going to take sannyas. Prabhupada says, I never said that. Sometimes, that's not the punchline yet. Sometimes when something would happen and somebody would really be upset about something Prabhupada said, he would say, I never said that. It's just like, okay, it's erased. If it was said, it wasn't said. It's just like, that solves the whole problem. I never said, who said or Prabhupada said, who said I said that? Hansaduta, I never said that. He said that. So, he could see, wait a minute, Hansaduta was like lying to me. This is not good. And then she says, Prabhupada, I hate everyone and I hate everything. And Prabhupada says, oh, very good. This is very good. You're making spiritual advancement. Dead serious. Prabhupada's totally serious. He said, I think Prabhupada said, this is like Arjuna. You're making spiritual advancement. She was so frustrated that her husband would do this to her. And she came in, like Prabhupada's like her grandfather, just telling everything. And she says, it's kind of like saying, I just want to die. I can't stand to live. She's like, I don't care about anyone, anything anymore. Oh, very good. You're making spiritual advancement. Interesting story, huh? So, in answer to Krishna Karshani's question, I do say, the reasons why we criticize really require some scrutiny and honesty on your part to understand why. She's giving a good, one of the good reasons why I criticize, because I don't know the person. I don't know why they do things. I don't understand their heart. I misunderstand them. I misread them. I see ill motives within them. There's so many things. You like that story, huh? It's a good thing you didn't have to wait a year for that. Because I could have forgot that in a year that I was going to tell you that story. So understanding others is important. And sometimes we're so absorbed in our world that it's really hard to understand other people. It's hard to get out of our world because we're like suffering so much, and all we think is about how much I'm suffering, how bad things are, and how bad my mind is, how many problems I have, and all the people that don't like me, and all the nice things I do to people that don't say thank you, and we're just like, and our whole life is, my life is so bad, it's so horrible. I was talking the other day in class how, you look at the problems people had 500 years ago, and look at the problems they have now. Now the biggest problems people have is they go to the mall and the sale's over. Oh no, the sale's over. That's the problems people have now. So what gets us upset is a lot different now, today, than it, we're quite spoiled. And I think stupid little things upset us that would not upset people 500 years ago. They had bigger things to be upset about than these little things we get upset about. I saw him today, and he saw me and he didn't smile. That means he hates me. That means he's envious of me. This is what we get into. So you want to get into that, and great. But maybe you could try to understand things more deeply. That might help you, prevent you from criticizing. Now, everyone's trying their best, although the best may not be good enough for you to approve of them, but everybody's trying. And something that I've said many times, which is worth repeating, is sometimes somebody is just not up to your grade, but they've done amazing things to please Prabhupada, or they may be pleasing Prabhupada still. It's not our, our God-given right to just smash everyone to the ground. If you're going to smash somebody, smash your false ego. That'd be better. Right? So you're absolutely right. That's one of the reasons we don't try to understand their situation, their character, their background. One of the beautiful questions in our forgiveness course is this. We do an exercise. And in the exercise, you become the person you're trying to forgive. And then you have to speak as if you're that person. You have to explain why you did what you did. So you have to try to enter their head. You have to try to enter their world to understand them. Why did they do that? And so after we do that exercise, we ask a question. We say, okay, now hopefully you understand more about the person, their upbringing, their background, their culture, the way they see the world, the way they respond to difficulty, what the difficulties they've gone through in their life. So we ask the question, if you went through the same, if you were raised like them, raised in the culture, went through the difficulties, got the same kind of education. In other words, if you just have had the same experiences in life as they had, could you have possibly done what they did? And everybody says, yes, definitely I could have. Knowing what they went through, knowing their cultural conditioning, I definitely could have done what they did. That's the big breakthrough. Because now, instead of hating that person, you're relating to that person. Yeah, they're human, and I could have done it. I understand how their conditioning has affected them. And thus I could have done it as well. Isn't that interesting? I mean, there's this saying in the self-development world that your whole life is directed by the questions you ask. And this is such an important point, because that question is so powerful, isn't it? If I can't forgive this person. My mother-in-law, I'll never forgive her. She's so this, she's so that, she's so this. I got to get away. If I see her, I can't deal with it. And then you learn, why is your mother-in-law like that? Because her mother-in-law was like that. And she obeyed her mother-in-law. She expects you to obey her why don't you obey me? I obeyed my mother-in-law. I didn't like my mother-in-law, but I did what she said because she was my mother-in-law, and I'm your mother-in-law, and you need to obey me. And so you start to understand, oh, I get it. She didn't like her mother-in-law, but she obeyed her, so she's expecting, oh, yeah, that was the culture then. Ladies and gentlemen, there was one time in history, a culture where people actually respected elders. I know you don't believe it, but there actually was a time when it happened. So you get this generation of people who respected their elders, and they have the audacity to think that their children and grandchildren would actually respect them like they respected their elders. What a crazy idea they have. I don't know where they got that. So that's how they're thinking, right? And once you understand that, you go, oh, okay. He said, that's the culture they were raised in. That's what people did. Oh, okay. Even if they didn't like the elder, they respected him. Okay, all right. I'm starting to understand. That's why they're expecting you to do it, because that's what they did, and that's what their mother did, and that's what her mother did, and that's what her mother did, and that's what they've done since like the day of Brahma. And you're like the first person in the universe they've ever seen who's not doing that, so they're kind of upset. Oh, now I get it. So the question is, if you knew all that and lived through all that and were raised like them, could you be that same mother-in-law? I'm like, yeah, probably I would be. I'd probably be worse than her. When you ask that question, some people come back and go, yeah, I'd probably do worse than they did. So the point is, what's your point? The point, it's a funny story. But I'll get to the funny story in a minute. But the point is that questions just like the right questions change everything. And the wrong questions destroy everything. Why did that have to happen to me? Why did he do this? Why are they doing that? Why? There's all these questions that just get you into trouble and make you more depressed and discouraged and angry and critical. Isn't it? I mean, think about the questions you ask yourself. If you ask the wrong questions, you're like, you're going down. You ask the right questions, they just take you up. So, isn't it? You know, if I were in that person's shoes, could I have done that? What a good question if you're dealing with resentment or criticism. So here, you want to hear the funny one? I was in Venice Beach walking. I don't know what I was doing there. We used to preach there. I was down there. This couple's coming the other way, and they're arguing really loud, and it's kind of like, you can't avoid them. And he says, the point is, and she cuts him off and says, the point is, you have no point. And I was like, that's a classic. I'm glad I'm not married to her. That was my first thought. I think I was a brahmachari, and I was thinking, I'm glad I'm not married to anybody. I thought that was like right out of the movies. The point is, you have no point. That's like a line, you know. Right? If you're writing a movie, use that line. The point is, no, you have no point. Point is, you have no point. So yeah. Anyway, it is now 9:30 in New York. It's also 9:30. Amazingly, it's also 9:30 in Alachua. Can you believe it? They both have the same time. So it's 9:30 in Alachua. It's 9:30 in New York. Do you want that book? What book? What book were you talking about? I already forgot the book. Sometimes when you're hurt by an offense of a senior devotee, even though the action hurt is from within you, he is just triggering, yes. As a neophyte, sometimes we need to share our grief. Yeah, as long as you don't destroy him. If you're sharing your own feelings, but don't criticize. Because, you know, okay, here's the bad news, everyone. I hate to share bad news with you, but this world is not a world of justice. These devotees said, you know, you got to see this video. You got to watch this video. You know, one of those videos you have to see. And it was an interview with a lady who understood all the politics that is going around immunizations and viruses and all the people who are out to make money and all the this is the lies and, you know, all the things that Prabhupada said in general go on, but specifics. And she was arrested for 5 years for being a whistleblower, and there were no charges, and they kept her in jail. So the interview said, so what were you charged with? She said, nothing. I didn't do anything wrong. There were no charges, but I was arrested, and my life was threatened. She published a paper that would kind of destroy the progress that the pharmaceuticals were making in the vaccination area. And they came and said, give us that paper. Anyway, so I have some bad news for Vijay Lakshmi and everyone else. This is not the place. If you want justice, you are definitely in the wrong place. Not the wrong country, the wrong planet. Exactly, yeah. Well, you know, in this country you don't get justice. No, Bhagavatam says the only people who get justice are the ones who have a lot of money. And I found that out in India. You know, if you have money, then you're good. You'll get out. That's how I'm living proof of. We're talking like, you know, it wasn't cheap to get me out of India, where it cost money. And then, you know, money in the hands of not, you know, people who can do things. That's, you know. So if you want justice, and you don't have a lot of money, good luck. But just justice in general, if that's what you want, Vijay Lakshmi, you are on the wrong planet. That's all I can say. There's another planet called Goloka. That's where you need to be. So a lot of times when we grieve about what, you know, the injustice, you know, part of us has to realize, you know, I choose to take birth on a planet in Kali Yuga, and I'm still around. It's Kali Yuga. I'm still here. I haven't made it back to Godhead. So I can't really have high expectations for justice, although I would like to, and I do have them, realistically speaking. Kali Yuga and truthfulness is decreasing by the day, as we're speaking. How many modules of truthfulness have we lost during the last hour and a half of this class? Who can say, right? So not to minimize our grief, not to not be empathetic, but at least we don't want to direct our grief in a way that it's going to degrade us. We want to do it in a way that's going to help us, and we want to do it in a way where we understand that, it's just like this is not a good place to hang out for too long. Unless you can hang out here if you're preaching, but otherwise, it's not a great place to hang out. You're not going to really get what you want here. Not materially anyway. And the injustices will be there. Even pure devotees, look at how they're treated. How to differentiate in ourselves the urgency to stop someone's intelligence, which affects a group of people, and the fact of being critical. That's a question for you to answer, because you know why you're doing it. I mean, if you honestly know that I'm doing this to protect people, then you're not critical. That's not the definition of being critical, so I wouldn't worry about it. But you have to look in your heart and say, is there some malice there in doing this? Is there some revenge? Do I want to get back? Do I want to hurt this person? Because those are qualities we're trying to transcend or purify. And that's the point. You see, this is a good point here. You have two things. You have what should be done on the external level to rectify a situation. And then you have why you're doing it. Okay, I'm doing it to rectify the situation and protect devotees. What else is in there? Because if there's anything in there that reeks of the mode of ignorance, that's contaminated. That's toxic for us. So if there's any revenge or hatred or anger, these are things we're trying to purify, not cultivate. So you have to be careful that in rectifying situations and criticism and so forth, we're not cultivating tamasic qualities, because they're all toxic and destructive for us. So in the name of rectifying a situation, you're like a fireman. You go in and then you die. So you have to be careful. You have to be careful when you do this not to get caught up in this. Yeah, that devotee, he's always like this, and everybody hates him. And, pretty soon, you're like, rah, you're like Lord Nrsingadev, Kishori Nrsinga, Mani, let's get that devotee, I gotta take it to the GBC. And then you're like, you drop out of university, you quit your job just to destroy this devotee. Yeah, you don't want to go there. T-shirt, okay. I'm allergic to Prajalpa. That's a good one. So here's what we do. This is the answer to Krishna Kanta's question. How do I get away from people like this? Everyone wears a T-shirt under your, well, for men it's easy, under their kurta. Women, you'll have to figure it out, wear a T-shirt and cover it like this with your sari. And then when you hear Prajalpa, you go, da, 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 da. I'm the no Prajalpa man or woman. Or you rip off your kurta. And it says, I'm allergic to Prajalpa, yeah. Or maybe we have to get a button-up kirtan, like snap metal buttons all the way here. And when people are talking Prajalpa, we just go, dun, dun, dun. It's no Prajalpa man. He only glorifies devotees. Everywhere he goes, everywhere he travels, he never speaks in ill world. He's no Prajalpa man. So that's it. That solves all the problems, and it answers Krishna Kanta's question. We need the I'm allergic to Prajalpa T-shirt, and we need the when my hands in my bag talking to you as a drag. We need the V-bag, and we're good to go. We can go anywhere in ISKCON, and we'll be fine. Now I get why the devotee school in the UK is called Avanti. It's not only for devotees. It's a public school. Yeah, and that's where it was. That's Krishna's school. In India, many teachers of bhakti, how to recognize who speaking from spiritual perspective and who is speaking his mind. You have to know the Shastras really well to know that. relates especially young devotees or people who haven't knowledge. Yeah, well, it's a liability. That should be the job of the leaders, to monitor people who give class or people who are preachers so that they're preaching properly. And if you're there and you hear something, then you can correct and say, but this is like an eternal problem. I do it. This is kind of you don't know what I do behind the scenes, but behind the scenes, I get so many emails where this is kind of like my new job, correcting misinformation. I get misinformation all the time. Well, so-and-so said, and I'm like, he said that? That's like 108% backwards. Where's that coming from? I get that all the time. So it's part of our job as senior devotees to be around to help people if there's misinformation. And misinformation is not uncommon. So Snigdha says, Sangita. What about when someone wants to talk about their family life and wants to discuss their sorrow or the pain they're going through? Is this what we consider prajalpa? No, it's considered service. That's service, you listen. Sometimes you have to listen to them criticize because if you just let them talk, they'll get through it and then they'll apologize. But if you can't do it, don't do it. But if you can, then it can be therapeutic. You just have to talk. Just talk about it. But generally, we try to direct them to talk more about how you feel rather than how you feel towards the person, because it's better they just express their feelings. And that's your service, help them express themselves. Like Vijay Lakshmi is saying, grieving. So if you can get them to grieve without, just, I feel really let down, I feel betrayed. They're not saying, I feel betrayed by this person, that's what they mean, but at least for you it's easier to listen to and it helps them kind of navigate that. How can we differentiate between people that are critical and people that are analytical, realistic? I think you can feel it. I have a godbrother. He is amazing. He's so witty. He's so intelligent. And when he criticizes, it's a total riot. It's so funny. It's so funny. And it's so right on. It's spot on. He goes, I told them 20 years ago this would happen, and it's happening exactly the way I said it. Anyone who with half a brain could have seen that. But he doesn't have an envious bone in his body. So, you can kind of feel, and you choose your association as well. Sometimes, when something's being said analytically, it's just pointing out, oh, yes, I've seen this is a problem. So it's sometimes it's more philosophy, just understanding there's a deviation. What about empathetic listening in relation to prajalpa? Yeah, we're just talking about it. Listening to someone's complaining, kind of service, and listening and understanding the point of view. Yeah. But what someone's just expressing their dissatisfaction. What I learned from the professionals who teach empathic listening, that if you personally find it's difficult to listen, you can just tell them, I'd really like to listen and it would really be good, but I'm not the one. See if you can find someone else, because this is hard for me to listen to. Because it's hard for me to listen to criticism, or, the person you're talking about, I'm actually very close to them and I like them, and it's going to destroy our relationship for me to hear this. But I think it's good you talk about it, but I personally can't hear it. So you have the right to do that if you think it's going to harm you. Prabhupada also said, good fortune is becoming a devotee in this life is that you were a devotee in the previous life, but incomplete. Yeah, I heard also again, and my offering to Prabhupada this year was exactly on that topic. So, how do we communicate with a self-style leader who refuses to cooperate with the sincere preachers and is ambitious to preach by watering down standards set by Srila Prabhupada? Well, not knowing the situation is really difficult to answer the question, and not knowing. Could try getting a group of devotees to meet with him and say, we want to talk about this. We have some concerns. Could you explain why you're doing? We just want to know why you're doing this because it seems not to be the standard. You could ask. Sometimes people ask me, how can you say this or that? Then I explain it. And I think 99.999999999% of the time, they're satisfied with the answer. So that's a starting point, if that's possible. My experience is that the same people, when we are preaching and engaging them in Sankirtan process, they become most dear. And when I'm not engaging in preaching, really hard to care for them. That's a good point. At all. Preaching brings out compassion. It's such a... but there's a nice exercise we do in our... reasons we blame. Kamini will put that up. There's a nice exercise we do. Okay, you're getting bonus time here because we didn't have class Wednesday and Saturday and Sunday. So... preaching brings out compassion. It definitely brings out compassion. And you just made the point very clear, because it's like it forces compassion out of you. You need compassion to do it, so Krishna gives you the compassion. And there are 80 reasons we blame. 80? Oh my God. I have 80 reasons? No, it's illumination number 80. Isn't it not? Reasons we blame, criticize others. That's an article. And then the other one is we blame or criticize. Yeah. Anyway, it's there. Blame or criticize by Mahatma Das. Everybody's. John is here all the way from Maine. John, it's all your fault. The Maine weather is down here in Florida. It was like yesterday. I don't know, night before last was 48 degrees, which Celsius is about 9. And it's May. Like it's getting almost to be the middle of May, and it's like 48 degrees. That's like, it's all your fault, John. You are transferring the weather of, and John's going, no, it's 85 in Maine. I have a theory. Someone can answer this. Maybe due to coronavirus, is like the weather is like going to what it's supposed to be. And we actually had global warming, and it's like now the air is clear. It's so cool here. It's never been this cool. I've lived here for 15 years or more. My daughter's 19. She was 2. So I've lived here 16 years. I've never seen it this cold. It's like freezing outside now, and it's almost 10 in the morning, and it's May. This is crazy. No, we're just playing with John. John is amazing. He's he used to be a Jesuit priest, and he loves Prabhupada, and he loves the Bhagavatam, and he loves the holy name. And I think he loves me also. Is that true, John? Hare Krishna. I think he just answered the question. If he's changing the teachings, it needs to be pointed out, yes. Alachua to Prajalpa would make a great badge in American English. You call this a button. Yeah, a button. Button. In England, you call it a button. Button. A badge, yeah. Okay. I love those t-shirt sayings. How can I get some of those t-shirts? Can somebody send me, you're all supposed to pick a day and go over the class and send me all the t-shirts? So we got to, someone's organizing this, right? So can somebody, you send me today's t-shirts? I think there's only one for today, 1 or 2. Hand in the bag, there's 2 for today. How are we going to get it? Well, there's a devotee in Buenos Aires who's going to design them. I sent her a lot of them, and I said, I'll send you more, and we'll pick the best ones. Maybe we have to send them all out to you, and we'll pick the top 5 or 10. And then we'll have them on my website. Is there some place like Amazon.com you can just order 1 t-shirt? There must be by now. This is like 2020. It's like you can order 1 book, and they'll print it, like order 1 t-shirt. Okay. Okay. So Kamaniya, do you have time to research that and see if such a place exists where you design a T-shirt, or they even design it for you, and then people can just order T-shirts? They're probably like $20 or something, but people could order T-shirts and give the size and the color, and they just make one off. Then, if that is true, then our T-shirt company has just been born today. What are we calling that company? I forgot the name. Did we come up with a name for the company? Who remembers? Did I have a name? I must have had a name. Does anyone remember? I can't remember. What is the name? I think we had a few names. Maybe some of you can remember. We had a name for the company. We had 2 names, right? Bhaja Govinda speaking about liberation. There are so many references about the benedictions of liberation. We are not interested in liberation. We want to be sheltered at Krishna's feet. Bhaja Govinda, you're already liberated. You chant the holy name. What more do you want? One holy name, you're liberated. We did speak about liberation in another class a little bit, I think. In the Ajamil, yeah, we did. We spoke like 10 days ago about Ajamil, so we had to go understand that. Okay, here's something interesting. 21, 14, and 7. What does this refer to? Well, have you ever read 21 generations of your relatives will become pure devotees? Have you ever read that? Have you ever read, no, it's not 21, it's 14. And someone says, no, it's not 14, it's 7. So, Uttama Adhikari, 21 generations of your family will be liberated. Madhyama Adhikari, 14 generations, and Kanishta Adhikari, 7 generations. So, Prabhus, ladies and gentlemen, get to work. You want to save your family, become an Uttama Adhikari. You'll save 21 generations. And all the people in those generations, you'll be saving hundreds and hundreds, maybe thousands of people by becoming a pure devotee. Thank you, Gomati. She likes my classes. I like them also. Krishna's, I don't know, Krishna inspires me. I made note of today's T-shirt idea from Marco, yeah. I'm allergic to Prajalpa. Second one, in the band, when my hand's in my bag, talking to you is a drag. I've actually been meaning to email you my idea about the T-shirts. Okay. But if we can find that, if that company exists, well, we'll get on it. We'll be the new rage. And, we'll go all risk on everyone's wearing these T-shirts. And everyone's like, what does that mean? And you have to explain it. And T-shirts, we have T-shirts for the temple, and we have T-shirts for outside the temple. Like, the T-shirt for outside, tolerate happiness, and everyone's looking at. I told my neighbor that, and he said, yeah, he had this other T-shirt, said something. He said, so many people would ask him, what does that mean? So it's going to work. The websites you can product, and they paint out only what you order. Wow. Send me the links if you have them. I'm like, this could be the best day of my life. My T-shirt company is being launched today. And I need a name for the company. And you're going to say, Mahatma Unlimited, right? Is that the name of the company? We had a devotee who used to make badges, pins, and he called his company Pin Up the World. Something with threads, I think, with a name. Mantra threads or something. Mantra T-shirts. Oh, or get the mugs printed, yeah. Sattva sayings. Yeah, that could be. Sattva sayings, that's the name of my company. Thank you, Michael, for thanking me, and many thanks. And now I can go and take breakfast. Only 25 minutes late. Okay, you got a 25-minute bonus. But I have to tell you, I don't know if I told you last Saturday and Sunday morning, I had to go through the book. I know we have a book I wrote. It's for non-devotees, for new people. It was like 100 pages or something, 13 chapters, 80, 90 pages. But it was edited, and then I gave it to Satyarupa to proof and Gopi Jivana to proof. And it took me 5 hours to go through each proof. So it took me, last weekend, I had to spend 10 hours just proofing that book. And I got the proof from Gopi Jivana April 13th, and I couldn't find the time. So I had to do that in the morning, like I said. So here's my promise to you, and it's not much of a promise, I guess I can't exactly make it. Light name, clothed in devotion. Whoa. Okay, now we're going to need a vote here. Clothed in devotion. How about clothed in mantras? Coronavirus, let's get infected. Yeah, that was a good one. That's a good one for devotees. Yeah. Can you make a note of that, Kamini, also? So tomorrow I have to take off in the morning, Sunday. But tomorrow there's a class at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So some of you can make it, some of you can't. And then Sunday, I don't think there's anything. But what I've decided to do was not do the morning classes on the weekends, so I can work in the morning to get these things done. I have another project to work on that's like way overdue. And it just requires a morning with nothing to do. And my brain, the good news is my brain still works in the morning. It doesn't really work so well after the morning, but it definitely, I mean, I'm just saying work because the work I have to do requires intense concentration, really draining the brain. So the morning's the best time. So I have to do that. But I'm getting invited to lots of classes. And so I decided as far as possible to do them on the weekends. So unless people say it has to be a weekday. So there will be other classes on the weekends. And there's always that 5 o'clock class on how to mess up your life, basically. 10 things you can do to totally mess up your life. I've done them all, so I'm speaking from experience. No, I don't know if I've done them all, but I've seen them all. So that's there. And if there's any other programs, then I will organize them on the weekends so that we can also have classes then. But I need those mornings because I just, otherwise, like this class, sometimes I have to prepare. So a lot of times the whole morning's just taken up chanting, studying, giving the class, and now it's 10 o'clock, I take breakfast, and then, it's 10:30, and then the universe is crashing down on me with 2,683 projects I have to oversee. So the morning is, so just forgive me for that for now. And if we get back to zero, or things will change after the lockdown, we'll see where we're going to go with it. So there won't be a class tomorrow or Sunday morning at this time, but we'll resume Monday morning, and then I don't think there's any classes on Sunday, but definitely Saturday, and if there's anything on Sunday, and it's Saturday at 5, not 6, the time was changed. And if there's anything on Sunday, I will let you know. ASAP, I will check. And I can't check now because, well, I guess I could check. Okay, can I go off Facebook? And it'll put you on pause. All right, I don't need to put you on pause. We'll finish now, and then we can check. And I'll let you know. And if you don't hear from me, that means there's nothing going on Sunday. And that means I'm going to finish. I have to review a whole series of documents about Guru for prospective disciples. I've written, and it's been edited and talked about. And this is 2 years in the making. And finally I got the final docs, and I need to read them. It's got to be in the morning. So thank you for being tolerant and patient. And we will see you hopefully Saturday at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time if you're awake. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Go Premanande. Hari Hari Bol.